order, and I'm going to ask Teresa to do a roll call.
Okay. Michael,
Here.
Brent,
Here.
Joycelyn, here, John,
Here.
Yummy,
Here.
Michelle, Ron,
Yes.
Michelle. Okay. Michelle.
This is Brent Schoenemeyer, co-chair of the building committee. We have a quorum present. Cody, if Michelle joins us, just let us know that she does join us.
Brent-
So there's an agenda in front of us, and I'm going to ask and move approval of the agenda. So
Second.
Ron moved, Joycelyn seconded. So all in favor of the agenda? Aye. All those opposed? Anyone abstaining? And then we have, I'm going to move on to the next item. We have approval of the February 24th minutes. They've been published. Somebody look at them.
Move approval.
Second, Joycelyn.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? All right. Before we get in, we have a quick update. We've not been together in a while, and you can see some remarkable progress in some of our buildings. But the main reason for us gathering today is to a thoughtful consideration of Riverside, which has been a long-standing project, and we're to the point of wanting to review agreements. And so I just asked staff if we can quickly go through the updates so that we can have sufficient time to address the Riverside. So
Yeah, I think we can do that real quick. So this is Steve. I think we'll just go through this quickly. So in fact, the main thing that I think I'd like to highlight is what's the status as well as the biweekly update. So so if you skip one more, Cody, there we go. What's the status? And so we'll just give you a quick update here. The letter of intent was signed with the city of Riverside on March 18. We had the rededication of the Blue Ridge branch also on March the 18th. And then we started the site work on North Oak last month. And I've got some pictures here in a second, and we'll share those with you. If we go to the next slide, what we're doing this month. The indoor substantial completion is online for Leap Summit. We'll show you that as well. And work in earnest happening at North Oak. And so then next month is substantial completion, which we are shooting for Lee Summit first week of May. With luck, we should be moved in the middle of May and operational sometime in June. So that's what happened last month, what's happening this month, what's happening next month. Cody, do you have the most recent biweekly? There we go. So this is the biweekly update photos, which I believe we just received this morning from J.E. Dunn. So these are hot off the press. This is Green Hills, and this is all exterior of Green Hills. So you can see that it's progressing very nicely in terms of where we are right now. Obviously, we need to finish up with parking lot and landscaping, but all of that will come toward the very, very end. If we go to the next slide, these are interiors of Green Hills. Just kind of give you a feel of how things are progressing there. So you can see the ceilings going in places, drywall, some finishes are going in. So still looking pretty good in terms of completion. In the lower left corner, that's actually the cafe at Green Hills, and you kind of see like little white things that are hanging from the ceiling. That's actually the coffee cup motif that's actually going in above the cafe. So if we go to the next slide, this is Lee Summit. And so you can see the addition in upper left-hand corner is sort of the drive. It's looking from the north. So looking at the building, you can see the new windows and the drive-up lane. You can also see in the lower left, this is the sort of trapezoid ceiling shapes. I'm guessing the one that's sort of at the top, the sort of the most prominent one there is the fox. It looks like it's the shape of a fox, if I'm not mistaken. You can see in the middle, Cody just tells us that Michelle is joined and Brian with the city of Riverside is also online. So just an FYI. In the bottom, the other two bottom images are interiors, which of course you can see got lighting, ceiling, carpet. When you've got carpet and ceiling, that means that bookshelves are not far behind. So we are moving along very quickly on this.
Could you remind me of the number of parking spaces there are?
I can't, Jake can.
Jake can, okay.
Approximately 85, I believe. We also have the north parking lot where we'll be able to use as well. I will get you an exact number, but we did not get a large improvement in space, but we did get a large improvement in the grade. And of course, we basically have a brand new parking lot rather than a seal coat or something like that we've been dealing with over the last several years. So mill and overlay, they were working on it quite hard last week when I was out in it. That's it. So I think it's going to turn out real well.
Okay, so the other parking spaces are on the back side of the building?
Correct.
Yeah. And then, of course, you can also park in the parking lot of the next door.
Like people have done all along
For
yes.
years. Yeah,
So
that's right.
Probably the biggest difference between the parking lot now and before, as Jake said, we worked really hard to flatten it. So it's not
Yeah.
nearly as steep as it used to be. And the other issue is that we did install a speed table, which will help control speed. So people aren't driving as fast through there, which will be advantageous for people. And will encourage people to park in other parts of the parking lot because they're not having to dodge cars.
John, if you look at this upper left picture here, you see where the drive-through is.
Yeah.
And that's actually taken from what the north part of the parking lot. We also graded out and added some extra spots there. And that's one of the additional reasons why we put the speed table in, so that if people were walking across that, there would you don't have people blazing up and forth like it's a highway.
Yeah.
So we definitely improved the parking lot, and there is definitely more space than there was before.
Oh, yeah. I think the only other library that had a hillier parking lot was Riverside.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, hang on,
It's
John.
Riverside, right?
So I think that completes Lee Summit. If we go to the next slide. This is North Oak, or was North Oak. And so you can see that there's quite a lot of work being done to prepare the site, including some preliminary work. You can see preliminary work on some of the underground storm water issues that's getting addressed right now. So concrete footings and foundations looks like they're starting at the end of this month. So that's certainly moving right along.
The actual construction of the new building.
And I think that concludes our slide presentation.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? The next item is Riverside. Let me just kind of set up the conversation just so we can sort of figure out what it looks like. I think I'm going to ask staff to give us just a general summary. We have two action items. One is a lease and one is a purchase agreement. They're separate documents and we will consider them separately. There may be questions around them. I'm just hopeful that we can sort of let staff present the documents and summarize the key points that are important for us all, and then we can take up specific questions at the end of it all. We're joined by somebody from the city of Riverside, and I'll look to Jim Staley or Jake to introduce our guest. And he's available to answer questions from the city side of it all. It's good to see Jim and Jake in the room because they've been working on this for several years, and we'll just leave it at that. And so I'm going to turn it over to staff to sort of remind us what we had in mind and where we've been and where we are at the moment and what the decision in front of us is.
So let me start off a little bit and I'm not sure how comfortable, Jim, you might be in maybe helping to walk through a little bit more. I mean, I might tee this up a little bit and let you go a little bit deeper into it, if you're comfortable with it. But what, going back in history, where gosh, if we really go back in history, and we talked about this, I think the last time that we met, is that a lot of these conversations even predate conversations around Proposition L. They go back to 2013, 2014, 2015. And we've continued to work with the city of Riverside. We got to a point in, I believe it was at the September board meeting, where we showed a presentation that kind of outlined what the cost is to stay in place, what the cost is to move, what the city of Riverside was adding to the proposal, and why this might be advantageous. At that point, I think that the board, the committee, and then the board encouraged us or authorized staff to sign a letter of intent, allowing us to start working on a lease agreement and a purchase agreement between the city of Riverside and Mid-Continent for the two buildings. And that was done, I believe, at the March board meeting. I think that's when we finally signed the LOI, when it bounced back and forth. But right at the end of that, we did also actually, right before the March board meeting, we received a copy of the preliminary lease and purchase agreement. And so we started working on that. We have, I believe I shared with everybody on the committee, where we actually have a purchase agreement, and we put little Post-it notes on it to show where the content of the LOI shows up in the purchase agreement. I did go back and reviewed, actually over the weekend, I asked Phil Grubaugh to review this one more time. He did review it earlier and sent me an email message saying that from a legal point of view, there's no reason not to sign this once the addendum information is in place. But that's kind of where we are right now. So we had circulated, I believe, the purchase agreement to everyone. And at this point, I think we just want to make sure that the purchase agreement is reflecting what it is you think it is, that if you have any questions, we can answer those. And then Brian from the city of Riverside can help out with any questions as well if we have any. So Jim, let me let you take it the next layer.
Sure. I mean, I actually would say that if there's anything we want to do kind of on the history, that would be me. But if there's anything on the documents, that's actually Jake has been doing all the work on the documents. So depending on where the board wants to go with questions, I think it might be maybe best to direct them to Jake.
And you think I handled the history well enough?
You did. If anybody has any other questions about it, I mean, it is true that we've been working on this since 2014. And so we've had multiple iterations of this project. And so this particular, like some version of this iteration started in 2018. We've been working on this for 4 years now. And the city's been very responsive. It is, our guest from Riverside is Brian Coral. He's the city administrator for the city of Riverside.
That's who's there.
Yeah, who's been really instrumental. I can see him really small, like right up there in the corner. But he was kind enough to join us today in case we have any questions. So I think that's the history piece. So do you want to, anything about the documents?
I think the purchase and sale agreement is, we got everything we asked for. The city of Riverside was very cooperative. From my viewpoint, it's an excellent document. It covers MCPL and MCPL's patrons the way that we would want them to go forward. As Steve said, Phil Grubaugh has seen it twice. It's a good document. It's easy, it's simple. Basically says we're going to swap with or Riverside. The city of Riverside is going to buy our building and lot, and then we are going to get a lot in question that is right next to the community center, and it backs up to a park. It's the old QT site, and there will be an approximate amount of $2 million changed in that Riverside, the city of Riverside will provide to us, whether in the form of, it's really probably going to be a wire transfer because that's going to be the easiest and that's the way we typically work our land transactions. It does everything that we asked them to do in the letter of intent. It allows us to move forward to design and build a new library in a new site, which is right in the center of the city of Riverside.
So in timeline, I want to talk about one thing because this is different from our current project that we have going on at Green Hills. And I want to make sure that this is clear because the ordering of things makes a difference. So the way that we're actually doing this is if we were to move forward with this, City of Riverside would purchase our old building in exchange for the consideration that Jake was talking about. Then they would immediately lease our building back to us for 2 years at the cost of $1 a year. And so we don't leave our building until the new building is finished, even though the new our old building is actually owned by the City of Riverside. Now, that's important. That's important for a number of different reasons, including the fact that for example, and Brian, you might want to put your fingers in your ears because I'm about to do a hypothetical that's never gonna happen. Okay, but if we were going to say we were to design a building and we were to bring a building that essentially was a Butler building, like a pre-manufactured metal building, that does not meet the standards of our other construction, which is what the City of Riverside has asked us to do. They've asked us to build a building that meets the same sort of finishes and exterior as our other new construction. So in a situation like that, we would take it to P&Z at the City of Riverside. They would say, this doesn't meet standards, at which point it would void the contract. And we would then just unravel the contract at that point. I mean, we would owe the City of Riverside probably about $1.3, $1.4 million. We would stay in our building because we hadn't left our building and we would start over. But again, this is a hypothetical on how the contract could unravel. It's not going to unravel that way because we're not going to build a Butler building on that piece of property. And so, but I think this is important to understand that it's not going to be a situation where we're going to be, partially moved out. How do we get possession of our building back? We're already, we won't be owning our building, but we'll already be in our building. Even if 2 years from now. So I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. The other thing that came up that I think is an important thing to keep in mind, we did do a real quick due diligence again about the old fuel tanks. And Jake, do you want to talk about that or Brian?
Certainly. I actually asked Brian earlier this morning because I was pretty sure that the tanks had been removed because my knowledge of the EPA and when a gas station leaves, they are required by law to remove the tanks. So that is in fact what happened. And Brian sent me a letter from the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. It's called a no further action letter. They also sent me the report that caused this to be a no further action letter. The tanks have been moved. There have been studies done. There's no issues. I read the report this morning myself. It reads like a regular standard. They went in, they did the testing they were supposed to do. They didn't find anything excessive. They didn't find anything abnormal. And the Missouri DNR said, okay, wrote them a letter, no further action required. So I feel very, very strongly and confident, even more so now after I read the letter and read the report.
So they didn't find any evidence that there had been leaking from those tanks?
They did not.
No. Yeah, they did all the studies and stuff.
So our feeling, staff recommends the board and committee continue to ask us lots of questions, but staff feels very confident in moving forward with the process that what you asked us to do in the letter of intent is fully recognized in the 2 documents. And we're comfortable with it is as it is once we get some of the addenda or there's some appendix information on the purchase agreement that sometimes is done, right at the last minute by the title company. Some of it could be added and in place before the board meeting, but it's pro forma stuff.
I believe I can add the majority of them. There may only be one document that we would have to wait till the actual title sale. But as an example, Exhibit A is the city site. I can get us a copy of the city site, put right in there because I already know what it looks like. The others one are the special warranty deeds, which is essentially a form filled out between us and the city of Riverside that says, this is the property that you're gonna buy from us. This is the property that we're gonna get. And so we just need to, it's really, as Steve said, it's pro forma. We're at an 80% of already filling them out. We just need to, we don't want to do anything before we've come to you and said, this is what we'd like to do. So I feel very confident that I can get the majority, if not all, the documents in this before we come to the April 19th board meeting.
This is Brent Sean, our co-chair. Brian, I'm going to ask you if there's anything that you want to speak to or inform us about.
Mr. Co-Chairman, no, just it's good to see everybody. As I said earlier, a little bit small in the upper screen there, but on behalf of the mayor and the board, we're just thankful for the opportunity to kind of continue this conversation. Steve, Jake, and Jim have just really been great partners to work with, and I think, as was mentioned earlier, in 2018, we really kind of started to have some different options because we spent a lot of time prior to 2018 looking at what could we do on the library site as it is today and on that corner. Whereas in 2018, we acquired the site that's now going to be under consideration for the future library branch, which gives us the opportunity to continue, from your perspective, to continue to serve your patrons here in Riverside while the construction happens kind of on a totally separate site. You're free of traffic and all those things, and really just have a seamless experience. I think there've been talk of, the old branch closes on a Friday, the new branch opens on a Monday. So our board has looked at the documents.
Let me.
It takes a little while to move the books, Brian.
I know. I'm an optimist, right? Have you met the mayor? She likes everything done in 2 weeks.
That's very optimistic, Brian. I would like to temper that optimism and tell you that it would probably be about a month before the new library opened up.
Totally good. But a much shorter duration than some of the other projects we might have seen. So we're really kind of excited about that. Our mayor and board have looked at these agreements and are comfortable with them, and have unanimously signed off on them. So we're just excited, and anything we can do to kind of continue to work with your team and move this forward, we look forward to doing.
Thank you. Thank you. Question was raised with me by a non-committee member over the weekend about whether we needed to have these documents reviewed by somebody that specializes in real estate transactions. Brian can correct me, but I noted that Joe Bednar from Spencer Fane was party to the document, and that this is a very top-notch law firm, and that one of his practice areas is real estate. So I don't want to discount the ability of our staff to protect our interest and work through it, but I wanted to say that there was some party on the other side of it all which had familiarity with real estate law. And to Brian's point is that this is not a hostile takeover or an adversarial sort of proceeding. And so I think one goes into it with the idea is that you're interested in having a fair view that everybody is successful in the transaction, not that you don't have to pay attention to your own stuff. So that.
And to clarify, Mr. Grubaugh has looked at
Yes,
this.
yes.
He is the board's attorney.
Yes.
And just little walk down memory lane, the reason Phil actually has our account is when he worked with Dacey & Dacey, the law firm that he worked with, we kept coming in. This was Mid-Continent Public Library, vintage 1983, 85, 87. And we kept coming in with lease agreements, land purchase agreements, and things like that. And it was his responsibility at Dacey & Dacey to do this. So he may not be an official real estate attorney, but easily half the work he's done for Mid-Continent has been real estate.
So I want to pause at this point and see if there's any questions about any provision or that a committee member has that we can sort of, work through those. And then as at the conclusion of that, my thought is that we would take up the purchase agreement first, because if we don't purchase, then we don't need the lease. So, and as a reminder, actions here by the building committee are a recommendation to the full board. And so until the full board acts on them, we won't know the disposition of it all, but one would hope is that they would give some consideration to our consideration of it. So.
Yeah, I just want to express appreciation for the some clarification, because when I looked at the documents, I didn't find anything to suggest that there was more than even one of those $5,000 phase one reviews by Burns McDonald. The fact there was full remediation of any potential for contaminants, because that's a monster sized headache we would have forever. And what Jake just mentioned now, that the DNR came back with it and gave us an A+. That's wonderful. The one I had, again, not being anything approaching an architect, was a question of, and we talked about it, about there's a certain, from what I see, conformity between the facade of a building and its size. And since the examples given were very substantial large buildings, that maybe the facade for a large building isn't going to be able to translate clearly in some quantitative size, in quantitative sense for a size of the riverside. So my thought was that whatever the architects come up with, if they use the same degree of aesthetic sensitivities, that we're going to go with that. Not, in other words, if you got something that looks good, it might not be anything near the appearances of the large buildings, but they're good for that size in Riverside. Is that a safe to assume?
Yes, and I'm going to, at this branch, I'm going to ask Jim Staley to talk about the field trip to East Lee Summit.
Yeah, so prior to
It's kind of like this, what's good looks good on Orlando Bloom will not look good on me.
okay, noted. So
It's obvious.
So we back, I'm trying to remember exactly when this was. I think it was early in 2019, maybe. Or no, it would have been early in 2020. The city of Riverside came down for a field trip to East Lee Summit. Prior to that, they had been suggesting to us that it might be best if we used an architect that they had approved, because they had some concerns about our buildings in the past. I mean, right, they were used to looking at the current Riverside building is what they were.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we invited them down to see East Lee Summit, and just as they walked through the aesthetic choices, and maybe Brian can talk to this even more than I can. The mayor, the city staff walked out and said, you know what, actually, if this is what you're doing now, this is what we want. This is, as long as you're pursuing this level of quality, and I think level of quality is what they said, then we are happy with this. And, we feel okay about moving forward on this project with you all, with your current architects in place.
That's what we heard. Brian, is that accurate?
Absolutely, and I think the examples we pointed to in the agreement were just giving that general look and feel, recognizing that scale will be different. But if you've had a design team that's come up with all of those branches that all look fantastic and all really kind of meet the goals of the city for the center of Riverside, then we're more than comfortable that they're going to come up with another great product for the scale we're doing here.
And may I also add that in the original agreement, they had also used Grandview as an example, because they were very impressed with Grandview as well, which, as you know, is a remodel. And I asked them to take that out because Riverside is going to be a new building. So if we're going to use apples to apples, we want to have new buildings in the purchase and sale agreements, not new buildings and remodels. But my point for saying that is they were very impressed with Grandview, which is a remodel.
Right.
We did a good job with that as well. And I love it too, by the way. That's one of my favorite buildings.
Good job.
And if I'm not mistaken, a little closer in size.
Yes,
Also,
that is correct.
So there's that element.
Thank you, Brian.
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
Ron, you sent us about 6 questions. I think we touched on most of the area of your query.
Oh, yeah, these were more like just questions, certainly not concerns, but questions. And I think I couched in a sense that if there's no response, I'm assuming that it's not an issue.
Well, you got most of them. I mean, in many cases, you said, I'm seeing this and I assume it's this.
Yeah.
And usually you were right.
Yeah, exactly. Again, it's just a big thing because I've had shared with me horror stories about these crazy EPA things. Like, for example, some farmer may control weeds with spent hydraulic fluids or old spent oil. And 40 years later, 3 title holders later, there's found to be some contamination that leached out to the neighbors. They've got millions of dollars of remediation. And what Jake mentioned is it's extremely comforting, and I really appreciate that.
Well, and
There's a creek in the backyard.
exactly. And the other thing is the, the test was done, this test was all done in 2015, 2016. So it's very current.
Good, yeah. And it's been basically an empty spot since Quick Trip moved, yeah.
Correct.
Right.
And going back to the whole notion about just the appearance of this, it might be something as simple as City Hall and the car wash and the Quick Trip and Corner Cafe, but there's a heck of a lot of traffic. So I think it pays to have something that's really quite compelling to a lot of people driving by.
I want to make sure there's not any questions, Frank Schonnemeyer, co-chair, that there's not any questions for the members that are online. So Yummy or Michelle?
Oh, this is Michelle. I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, this is, yeah, I mean, yeah, no questions here.
Okay. I think we may arrive at a point if somebody wants to make a motion for approval of the agreement of purchase and sell. Hey, Joyson. Michael, any further discussion?
Just a real quick point, staff will do our level best to try to get as many of the addendums in place before the board meeting so that they'll be there.
Okay, great. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those,
Aye.
all those opposed? All those abstaining? Let the minute show that it was unanimous approval of the agreement on purchase and sell. Let's move to the lease. So any questions or further discussion about the lease?
The term is 2 years, is that correct?
Correct.
I asked for 2 years. Just as you know, for the most part, a branch this size or this scope is probably going to take, I'm guessing, a minimum of 13 months. But the time starts from when we start construction, not today. So I just asked for that as it was just a little bit of pushing for us. It was conservative, but I always like to be conservative versus risk. In this case, it was risk averse.
Thank you.
So you said that was from the time construction starts, that's when the 2 years start?
That's correct.
Okay, that was my understanding. I just want to make sure.
Helpful for me to know because
That's really,
I wouldn't agree to it because I know too many other things that have gone wrong. That's why.
okay.
thanks, Jake.
Somebody want to make a motion on the lease?
I move to accept the lease.
Michael moves. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And John Laney seconds. Any further discussion?
I have a question. This is Yummy.
Yes.
So the lease, it ends in 2 years, even if we need it for the full 2 years, I'm assuming.
The lease will end 90 days after we have a certificate of occupancy at the new building.
Okay, well, wow, that's fabulous. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All those any other questions? Excuse me. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? All those abstaining? So let the record show that the lease was unanimously approved. On a personal note, I'm good for $2 and I'm happy to pay that.
Well, thank you, Brian, for this, because I mean, this has been a long time coming, and the city's patience, but also the city was a very good collaborative partner to this point. And now it's time for the next for the next chapter in this book.
Well, we look forward to it. And again, thank you guys for the outstanding partnership. And we look forward to that, the next generation of MCPL here in the heart of Riverside.
Thank you, Brian.
It's still subject to the board,
Obviously.
board approval,
course.
and our meeting is what day?
19th.
19th. So anyway, we will proceed in an expeditious fashion to address both these issues. So thanks for hanging out with us.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Brian.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
And just in terms of clarification, Teresa and I will craft the recommended motions from the committee as a motion to recommend to the full board.
Right.
And I'm also going to tack on authorization for staff to execute. So that was, and I'll word it that way, staff to execute, because if for some reason this drags on into July, we will have Susan sign the first meeting. So.
Any other comments about our Riverside discussion?
Well, I'd just like to say thanks to everybody that's been involved with this thing. When they first approached us, it was yeah, I won't go over what the first offer was, but in any event, both sides have worked together over the years and kept the eye on what we should have, which is what is the best thing for the citizens of that city and for our library district. And I think we've arrived at that. And that's wonderful. That doesn't happen as often as it should.
Can I ask for one more personal privilege? And one of the things that I want people to understand, I think you all understand this from going way back, but I want Jake to talk a little bit about why we lean so much on him for things like this. I mean, so Jake's been running our project, our building project, and you may know him as the guy who understands, a floor joist to a beam, but Jake also has a lot of experience in contracting and a tremendous amount of experience. Right? So can you just give us just a real brief summary of your CV so that people understand when I turn a contract over to you, there's a really good reason that I turn a contract over to you before we turn it over to Phil. So
I appreciate that, Steve. Just a little bit of background for me. I've been doing government contracting for well over 20 years. I was a contracting officer with the United States Army. When I deployed to Afghanistan, I ran an office where we did over $160 million worth of contracting in that 9-month period, of which the largest contract was $8 million. So a lot of transactions, a lot of contracting, some construction. Then when I went to Kosovo, I was in charge of a humanitarian construction project in one of the easternmost boroughs. It was right next to Serbia. We redid a high school for the community, and I also did construction in the States. A couple of things at Camp Atterbury, which is where I was stationed before I deployed. So I did a lot of work on that. And then I also spent a year and a half in Saudi Arabia, and I was the construction contracting manager there. We did stuff like $230 million because they were introducing helicopters to their military. Since they didn't have any helicopters, they didn't have any airports for the helicopters. So that's just, that was my highlight there. I did a lot of low-level stuff where they were building brigade activity for either material or personnel. So I did that. And then on my civilian side, I worked for the Boeing company. I worked in St. Louis for the Boeing company, the military arm, but I also coordinated a little bit with the commercial arm in contracting and purchasing. We did a lot of spare parts was one of my major jobs there, but it was all in the contract administration or purchasing and sales in that particular area. One more highlight from Saudi, my warrant, the government, not just anyone can sign a contract for the government. You have to have what's called a warrant, and that gets approved by the top board of the contracting agency. My warrant in Saudi was $500 million. So I feel very confident when I come to Steve and I say that I've reviewed the contract. I think it's in pretty good shape. Real estate's a little different animal, but contracts are contracts. And so that's what I look for. I look for, is this contract going to be the best for MCPL? Is it going to be the best for us to push forward? And that's what I give to Steve when I go forward. Thanks.
I just want you all to feel a little comfortable. I mean, on a number of different levels. I think you feel comfortable that when Jake comes in and says, this is the GMP and we can take it to the bank, I think you feel comfortable because you've seen that performance. But in many cases, you've heard me say, well, Jake's looked at this contract, and you might go, Jake's the buildings guy. He's a lot more than the buildings guy. And I want you to feel comfortable knowing that. And then typically what we do with an agreement like this is, Jake kicks the tires really hard, and then we give it to Phil at that point, which helps us considerably in terms of making sure that had multiple sets of eyes on it. It usually allows Phil to turn things around a little quicker because he doesn't have to go into as much detail because Jake already has. So.
I like doing it that way too, because we put the groundwork in, and then Phil basically, he's just making sure it's legally sufficient. Not that he doesn't add his expertise. I don't want to say that at all, but by doing that, it does allow us to, in my mind, present a stronger contract as we're going forward.
Comment, please. This is Michael. Yeah, I just really appreciate you, Jake, and the confidence that you bring when you're kicking the tires on stuff. I'm not an expert, and not really any of us are either. We may be in some areas, but you have some unique gifts, and you've honed those over the skills, honed them over the years and years. It's like, man, so when you say something, then I tend to listen because you've been there, done that, and you know how to kick the tires and do all the sifting through things. And I really appreciate that you're here, and we can rely on you. And I personally do. So thank you.
I appreciate your trust.
I concur. When did you join the library staff?
2017.
And so at an earlier point, our librarians were trying to do some of the things that we're asking Jake to do. So I'm now going to look at any future agreements to see if there's a helipad. In it. So anyway, but like Michael, I take great comfort, and I feel good about the discussion we've had today and the level of review that we've got. And we'll be back sharing this and talking about this at our full board meeting. So unless there's something else on Riverside.
Nothing else on Riverside.
Yeah, I just want to mention too that when I first met Jake a couple of years ago, you mentioned some of the background too. I was picked up, and you're probably too modest, but he had attained ranks as a commission officer, which 50 years or 60 years ago, maybe John and Michael, I would wonder whether or not you got that award. So, I mean, that expertise, of course, not only recognized and appreciated here, but with the competitive nature of promotions within the DoD, obviously, there's no question.
I just want to say, Jake, thank you for your service there, and thank you for your service to MCPL. Much appreciated.
Probably the only other thing that staff wants to bring to the attention of the committee is that we are in budget season. Now, normally at the April meeting, we would be bringing the proposals, building related proposals to you. But technically, this isn't the April meeting. This is technically the March meeting that we moved because of PLA. The April meeting will come after the April board meeting, and we will have a few construction items for you to look at. That's part of the budget. So,
any comments from any of the building committee members?
Long time coming.
Yeah. Okay. Yummy, Michelle, anything else before we adjourn?
No, I'm good.
Nope. Thank goodness. This is definitely a long time coming.
All right. Take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Hi.
All those opposed? Anyone abstaining?